Okay. So, well, there's anyone here. Um, hmm. I'm gonna start. Uh, you can enjoy me playing Spelunky while I'm waiting for more people to join up. Yeah, so. Like, yeah, I've been configuring OBS. I'm still figuring the streaming stuff out. Still, if everything's going okay, if you have any issues, anything you want to like, if there's any issues with the stream, you can tell me. Just waiting for. If you're here, you can say hi. Just waiting for more people, and I'll probably start at like the hour. Watching the video. Yeah, I should put the preview for the video in. Just window capture. Alex thing, I think that's the right one. Yeah, that's the right one. Okay. Okay, that's the video I'm going to be reviewing. Probably I could set it so that the two windows switch places at the click of a button. Hey Pippa, how's it going? What kind of cereal you're going to eat? Wait, I forgot to break the... puppy. Oh, you know what? No, a sacrificial altar. You know what I'm gonna do with it. Sacrifice the puppy. Sorry, puppy. Need blood for the blood god, Kali. Is there any more blood? What? Wait, what happened? Was there a snake? Oh, okay. Yes. Oh. But yeah, I have to save. I need to. Would you like it more if the video was like in the place that the game is now, or would you like it better if the video was in the place of well, like that while it's playing? Because oh. Wait, I should. Maybe I should switch place the places of the and put the YouTube view on the chat view on the other side, like that. Should be better. Okay. Sources. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Is there a way to like I had a very poor impression of that person who's in bigger like in the stream, and I think I've heard of the other person. I'm not sure. I'm So they're supposed to be talking about the cast review, right? Or like a review, someone's coverage of the cast review. But yeah, like, I don't know where those people stand on those issues. Do they like? I would, if I'm like going by my guesses, I'd say that they're pretty disfavorable to medicalisation. Well, like I can't really I can't really say on like the like what their own conception of the whole debate is. So I assume, Piva, that you have no issues with the stream. No stuttering or anything. Oof. And background noise. Anything? Another tires. Like, I think I'm getting the handle of the technical side of things, just that I don't really have any art or something to like put on there for like backgrounds and stuff like that. I think I had to bump it. Yeah, if you're just there, like, I'm just waiting if there's, to see if there's more people. I'll probably start on the hour, in the review. Just so that people don't come in and miss things. So, how are you doing, people? Oh yeah? What's happened, Karasu? Is the latency good? Like, am I is what you're saying, like if I'm responding to you, is it like right away? Because I've activated low latency. Yeah, if it's personal, that might be better. Oh. Good thing. I hope I have less connection issues than like President Sunday. This person is selling a lot of turkeys. Can I get them to can I sacrifice them? Oh no, that's with the connection. Like, you know, he's getting every stream he's like it's like he's living in Libya. There, like he's getting a lot of connection issues. Oh, God. Well, he's like living in what in like a British Columbian city. I don't know how his connection is so poor. Maybe like he must live like in the suburb or something, a place where there's less worse connection. It's maybe I'm overestimating the. Oh, it's Spelunky too. It's a cute game where you can sacrifice puppies to the. Oh no, no! That's the worst thing that could happen. I wanted to sacrifice to you, but it crushed. Wait, is it frozen? It looks frozen on. Maybe it's just on my preview. A red dragon? I don't know what. Yeah, it's just on my YouTube preview. It's just. Oh. A red dragon. What does it look like? Let me check. Oh, you're talking about the poster behind me. Yeah. I don't know. It was with indie flat. I just keep it. I'm going to talk about the well, you see the video in the corner. It's going to be like the cast report. I think I think it puts way too much power to in the hands of doctors. I think it's a mistake to be but I can understand why like they went to that like they talked about well they are going at it from that perspective because well they're doctors and they're probably a bit transphobic. Let's not kill. Oh, a jetpack. Yeah, I've heard about. I think I've heard it from you, Kafka or Karasu, and like. Well, I think. Lucy, I think. I may have like a more extreme position, but I think that's like doctors should be like providing help, but they shouldn't be gatekeepers of treatments like we've had, like what the CAS report is positioning them to be. I that it doesn't really make sense if we like if we like if we don't see gender identity or gender itself as being like as it as like a medical thing. Like if like sure the changes to your body, like we could say that the processes in your brain are like biological, but should we say that it's like, should we put them through a medical lens? Like is we could say that, oh, you like this car because of those things in your brains that make you like some things over another. Like we could hypothetically have that kind of explanatory power, but like does that mean that now to certify that you're allowed to paint your house in that color, that's a permanent change? Like does that mean that you need to go through a doctor? It doesn't really make sense, does it? Like it's not extreme, but like the implications of it are things that people can't reckon with. It seems like the implication being that you should be able to get medication, hormones and stuff at leisure, because, well, those are biological, especially with puberty, those are biological changes that will be happening anyway. So reproduction? I like you mean like keeping frozen sperm and such? Yeah, I like that's kind of something that should be worked on, though. Like I don't think the system is like equipped to make such changes of like trying to somehow decommodify the preservation. Huh? Yeah, I think from what I've heard from you, certainly it seems like they're going to the right path, but it seems like people it seems like people are paying way much more attention on the way the CAS report is going on about like their perspective of like trans people being medicalized, and like yeah, people like, because people make arguments about protecting the children, and as if they are saying that puberty is only something that cis people get to enjoy, and like trans people have to cope with like, well, even saying cis people versus trans people is not really accurate, because, well, like, those kinds of measures would allow cis people we consider cis, maybe, to be freer to, like, control how their purity is going. And I guess that's what's scaring people. Like, Lonerbugs call me a trans supremacist because, well, that seems too extreme, that, like, somehow by allowing cis people he'd consider cis to access hormones, like, or like teens, they are making them, I'm saying they are trans. Which I mean, like, I have to think more about why why he would come to this conclusion. I think I'm ready to start reviewing the video. Let's see. So I go into that, and then I click play.
Everything that we believe.
Can you hear the
I've seen
video
like a
all
couple
right?
of bits and clips from it. I've seen
Is
when the guy from the
is
Doctor
the game
Navarro brought
audio
on, Aidan Kelly, is
high?
it?
Yeah,
Something?
Adrian Kelly.
His response was just like everything seemed that the recommendations are reasonable. There's
Lexibat and No Justice, I think. No just Ash at No Justice MTG. Potato Face recommended I watch this. Do you know them? Have you ever heard of them? I haven't. Well, I think I must have seen them one time. I don't really know much. I have this liking thing that I might disagree with them, and like the way Lexibat comported themselves with Presenza, it was not very good. Let me adjust. Okay.
some bits and pieces we're not sure about. So I honestly just wanted somebody to dispel some of the myths that are surrounding what's going on here, because I know that a lot of it's been, on both sides of this discussion, has all been pretty incendiary, shall we say.
I'm gonna have a hot take your chat might not agree with.
Oh, and like they might be criticizing it. They might be criticizing the like progressive kind of messaging, because they had the Erin in the morning face on the thumbnail, and I guess Cass's face. I don't know.
Novara's coverage actually was good.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. Yeah, I thought it was absolutely
It was
fine.
actually really good
I have no
coverage.
idea
And
what
Owen Jones
person-
talked to the same doctor.
Yes, I watched the Owen Jones one as well.
And now, Owen Jones leaned into the, well, this looks potentially bad for trans people. And to be fair, Novara did too. Yes, theoretically, it could potentially be bad for us. However, people are assuming Dr. Cass's bias is somewhere other than it is.
It's already bad for trans people. This is, to my knowledge, this is a continuation of the status quo. It doesn't account for, well, it doesn't have the power even to like make the NHS better. And like this is a person who talked to President Sunday about the Puppy and Xena stuff. And yeah.
Yes, people are assuming her bias is either pro or anti-trans. That's not the case. Her bias is that of a pediatrician. Her bias is pro-child and pro-patient, not pro or anti-trans.
No, her bias is well, kinda, but bias seems more to be about like the medicalization of like keeping control over those cases, because that's what it means in the end, the medicalization of trans people, and like to it's not really to protect them in some sense, to keep it keep it controlled. Like they are the justifications that people use, that they are protecting children, but well, what are you protecting them from exactly? From making bad decisions? I mean, like, who is better placed to say whether someone is making a bad decision? Like, it's not exactly that children can't make bad decisions. Like, the bad decision might even be that it's not to go on purity blockers, but you wouldn't force someone who doesn't want to go on purity blockers, even a child, to go on purity blockers. I don't think that's very something anyone wants. But it seems that forcing children to not go on purity blockers is more acceptable. And beyond that, like, the question about purity blockers being like an acceptable compromise, it's not a compromise. It doesn't really make sense to say, oh, I'm gonna pause the, like, I'm gonna make you go through this purity. Well, not go through this purity that... Wait, let me get my thoughts back. Wait, was there a Kelly altar? Yeah, well, like, to people who see that any kind of medication being given to children is like bad. Like, I don't think that satisfies anyone. It just puts trans children or children who like want to take control of their purity, like in a place where they can't really progress. They can't really know what they want. Like, well, like, they know what's best. They know what, if their changes they're ongoing are like something they want. You're just telling them, I don't, I'm not, like, I'm not giving you that choice now because, well, for what? Because you aren't equipped to make the choice that going on the purity of your choice would be giving you the experience to choose. Like, yeah, let them try it. If we're not talking about forcing them to take the full course, whatever that means. We're talking about doing what feels best for them. Like, maybe, well, who's to say what's best for them but themselves?
and like the recommendations that were made were reasonable based on. So yes, there are criticisms you can have based on the studies that were left out of the systemic reviews. I will admit to that.
In the end, it's not about
However,
studies.
one of the things people don't realize is that when you're a doctor doing these kinds of reviews, you have to follow certain sets of guidelines and certain evidence bars for
Yeah,
the
and why
research you
couldn't
can use.
be the guidelines to allow the person to do the choices for themselves? Why must we mediate that choice through a doctor? Like,
in the systemic reviews and systematic reviews. So yeah, there's a certain bar of research that has to be met. Additionally, they were looking at puberty blockers like they were an on-label prescription for gender disorder,
like,
which isn't the case. That's not what they're for.
What do you have?
Therefore,
what do you have left if the patient, if you don't trust the patient?
Precocious puberty, they've been being used off-label for dysphoria for years. And because we don't have a huge amount of data on them, and because GIDS was run so fucking shittily, which we know not only from the review, but from the CQC report from 2020, at the same time as the review was commissioned, we know GIDS was being run cack-handedly. We know they weren't recording things the way they were supposed to.
Trans people have been talking about this forever. We've been talking about how terrible dealing with the entirety of the whole process with the NHS has been bad. So, because I remember the reason why I was so kind of concerned, really, by the kind of reaction that we got is because I remember when the interim report came out. And a bunch of rightoid grifters spent the entire time saying, they say Tavistock is dangerous and that means that we've won. And I was like, yeah, but she said it was dangerous because it didn't have enough provision. The recommendation was for more provision and expanding it further around the country. It was dangerous because the waiting lists were too long, there wasn't enough provision, and people were having to travel from Newcastle down to London.
It seems to be
for
going
the only
in the right
place
direction.
that they could go to see somebody. And so when the same kind of reaction happened off this one, I was immediately...
Like if even, hey, Neil Sadaka, I haven't seen you here. Yeah, I think, well, what do we mean by provisions? By like resources? Is that is provisions going and talking about resources, or like, okay, yeah, because provisions to me could have meant like something like more like, yeah, like that I could have interpreted it as more measures to okay.
Immediately sort of skeptical about what was going on in the background. And the reason what prompted me to talk to you about this was there was the Kite interview. Cass did this interview with the Kite Foundation.
I'm not sure at gender, like, because, well, it's like it can. I'm not sure about the concept of gender clinic, like, because, well, if you're going to underfund the NHS, you're going to underfund the trans clinic either, and it's like, and well, if you're, it's much easier to underfund the trans clinic in themselves. If you have them singled out. Which yeah, maybe I should know more about the NHS. Yeah. Oh no, I killed the puppy. Well, I'm such a stupid way to die. Yeah, it seems like any until the NHS is funded, like any attempt to medicalize transness, even if like done the right, like in a way that keeps like to that gives like trans people agency, is just making making it so like making it worse about trans people. And like it's not like I can make it so that the or like so that like the political climate is amenable to one pig or another. We're not talking about the levers of power. We don't have the levers of power, it seems. Like the only thing I can affect is the discourse, and I would like to press the discourse towards a more decent way, a way that gives trans people autonomy and like ceases to present them as a medical condition, like by and like medicalizing transition, because like even if people say that they don't like trans people being transness being presented as a medical condition, it seems that like a lot of aspects that are tied to transness are getting characterized as medical conditions, like on grounds that would also implicate that would implicate a lot more than trans people. Like things that the transness is still the thing that's being singled out here, which is sad. That's just it. Like if we're talking in Canada, or, well, more specifically in Quebec, because we have our own healthcare system that's separate from the rest of the country. We're just special like that. We're like there's in my experience, it's been my GP referred me to a therapist that was specialized in trans people. Well, that specialist was private, and they can't themselves prescribe me hormones. So like I don't have any issues with my I don't have any much to say about my gender. I think I've done that work well myself, so I didn't see the point of like going to a specialist. I wanted hormones first and foremost. So well, I talked about it to my psychiatrist, and he was able to refer me to an endocrinologist, which finally allowed me to get hormones. Let's continue.
And essentially just said, yeah, I still agree with the kind of the mainstay of trans healthcare that we have at the moment, just provided in a better fashion and with maybe some different recommendations here and there. So, I mean, if you've read the whole review,
don't
if I
think-
remember correctly, or at least
Almost all of it, yeah.
One
almost
could
all
be
of it.
satisfied
So, can you
about
enlighten me as to
that.
what the kind of situation is as to
it's
why people
atrocious,
have been
from what I've heard.
misapprehending a lot of the information in there on both
Yeah,
sides?
so there's a few things people are going off half cocked. One of them is that she recommended an interim service for between the ages of 17 and 25, right? And people
don't want
like
to know
Erin
my
Reed,
career,
for
I don't
example,
want
who
to
are American and don't
be
know
exposing
shit
our-
about the NHS, don't listen to her. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She needs to shut her dumb whore mouth. People like Erin Reed have been going off about the cast review being this, that, and the other. She doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. Because no, it has nothing to do with withdrawing treatment for trans people until they're 25 at all. What it is she wants to bring that section of the NHS in line with other paediatric services regional. Like, there are mental health services that go up to the age of 25 around the country, because that moving into adult period for vulnerable young people is one of the most unstable and vulnerable periods of their life. Like,
Okay.
as everything
guess-
shifts into you're an adult now, you need to take responsibility for your own shit. As they get used to that and being more independent and what have you, they end up needing an awful lot more support if they are vulnerable or have complex needs.
I think
That's what Dr.
trans
Cass is
people
saying.
should
She's
get-
saying that support needs to
like,
be in place.
I'm not saying that people confuse it. Like, I don't want trans people to not get mental help. I just don't think that's of any relevance to their to them being able to access hormones. They like. Yeah, like, I think, like, they're kind of right in, like, what, but still it doesn't change really much on about how it's being perceived by trans and pro-trans and anti-trans groups. It's like it's still being medicalized, and think, yeah, your doctor seems like a good person. Wait, I'm probably better. What's the key to the play key? Is it there? Is it listed? Don't want to be. Yes, I got to.
Not just for things like puberty blockers if they're necessary.
The system of like trans people being somehow manipulated by therapists, or like cis people being manipulated by therapists to be trans or to pursue hormones. Is that what you're talking about, Kafka or Kaz? Like, it's a bit like the issue with like the medicalisation, because it does like give itself to like being oh, we're gonna there's this treatment, like, we're gonna trans you, like the treatment is transing you. That's something that people interpret from like it being a medical thing, which is silly, but it's just how people's mind operate on.
or cross-sex hormones if they're necessary, but also general mental health support as well. Because one of the things that we know about trans people is that we are more likely to have higher instances of bad mental health and of neurodivergency and addiction issues and so on in comparison to like our cis counterpart.
Sure,
She's
but
talking about a fully
that doesn't distinguish trans people from non-trans people. Just says that those are like it's a fact of them being a minority and like being cast out, being identified as being outsider or being like transgressors. Piva, what are you referring to? Like, is there an article, like a person, or like does Cass say that they were like talking about transgenders?
comprehensive care plan, individualized and tailored for the patient. That's what she's always been talking about. It's what the review says repeatedly.
What are we talking? Like, it's what are we talking about, Lexi? Is it that the doctor is determining what's best for the patient without getting the patient's approval? Like, it's still being mediated through the doctor. Hey, Palm Dad.
That it needs to be tackled with an individualistic, across-the-board, holistic, comprehensive care plan that not only addresses gender issues, but all the other things that either go into that or are affected by that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, so one thing
that means that just... Oh, yeah, the rapid onset gender dysphoria thing, kinda. But, well, then, like, Lexi just said, it's, like, well, then they're just singling people out for being trans and being the means by which they can access healthcare, because being trans is a part of being human. Your gender identity is yourself. It affects tons of a lot of facets of your being. Why do we need to single transness out as being the operative mean? Like, do we have would we have, like, it seems more like segregation than anything else. Like, I'm pretty sure that during apartheid in the US, there were doctors who would only serve white customers, and yeah, that's what's underpinning all of this, Cersei. It's like, would we say that you could use the same kind of justifications for black people because they were being oppressed, and it would affect a lot of their it would affect their body as well as their mind. I don't see how that's a good path to go on. It just means that more trans people are more seen as the other.
Ira.
Yeah. One thing that kind of caught me off guard, really,
Like-
because one thing
We want to be treated as human beings first and foremost. We don't like sure some some doctors are better than others at treating trans people, but like, why is it that there's this kind of separation? Why are trans people treated better by some doctors who are maybe just general practitioners? Like, is there a systemic issue that like segregates those doctors into doctors that are trans supportive and doctors that aren't? And why must we therefore add a clear distinction, like segregate trans people to those to some doctors which maybe aren't even trans supportive? They are just there to because it would be demanded. But like, why you're just making transness like you're just segregating. It's just that
thing that I had reservations with regarding that was that when a lot of people were talking about her desire for there to be holistic care of this, I think a lot of people, when they read that, thought, by holistic she means, well, what we can't have is an affirmative version of this. What we have by holistic, I mean, we have to take account any possible things, such as their dysphoria being caused something.
Well, even like that. That's maybe some people's criticisms. As I said, I would go like more in depth than that.
Thing other than being trans, gender exploratory therapy can therefore be an avenue to doing things rather than actually engaging with somebody's transness. I've not read the report in full. I've barely read any of it.
Oh,
I'd avoid that kind of stuff on my channel. So I wanted to get some clarity on this. Is that what she says in the report or not?
What she says in the report is, A, the question she was requested to answer was not, are trans people real? We know trans people are real. We know they need care. She says that up front in the introduction. Like, she says that is not the question I am here to answer.
So
the questions I'm here to answer are, was it GIDS any good? 1. 2, is the current treatment approach acceptable? And considering the GIDS did not have, like, a consistent assessment model even, never mind their complete inability to record proper clinical reasoning and...
Like, how could you have a consistent assessment model for trans people, which are very like that's multifaceted thing, you know?
Rationale for the prescription of things like puberty.
It's not
they were also just discharging people who maybe didn't want puberty blockers or support as well, or like that particular kind of support as well. Like, because the only pathway that was set up for trans youth was a medical one.
Yeah.
It was a medicinal one.
You read the cast report? Pipa? Because if so, like, maybe you could Lee could review the review of the review together. Okay. Yeah, it's like you need more than the cast report to answer this. Uh, oh, it's alright. Have you?
It was surgeries and meds. It wasn't like eventually surgeries and meds. It wasn't okay. Why?
Yeah, but well, like that's another issue. Why are we like doing this concept of like full transition of like this leads to that, this and that and that? Like, why are we not saying those are done at the person's request?
Can we do to manage specifically the distress? Like she says repeatedly in the review. I'm not saying do it instead. I'm saying do it as well.
Yeah.
Alongside.
Sure. Okay, that's good. That makes a lot of sense. With regards to puberty blockers as a treatment, for example, a lot of the NHS services, obviously the state, the Conservative Party running the state, and also I believe this is happening in Scotland as well, have gotten rid of puberty blockers, have banned the NHS from prescribing them to people as treatment for gender dysphoria. This was in response to the Cass review. So are you saying, based upon the actual content of the review, that there is no justification for the state doing that, given
that's
the
kind of an
information? Cass doesn't
indictment
recommend it at all, and this is just Conservative Party politics.
So the state themselves haven't banned anything, the NHS has, and their ban is temporary. Because one of the things that she recommends is further research, and what she's setting up and what they're setting up across the regional clinics that they're opening
that's
is
such a
basically
relief.
a massive research study that not only tracks puberty blockers for those they may deem it necessary to use, but also cross-sex hormones if they're over 16. It monitors things like what kind of result socially transitioning might have on a gender identity.
But like, what kind of research are we going off of? Like, because like there's research that like you need something that's very precise. Like, if you're going and like you gotta think about those things in their context. Because a lot of criticism I've seen from you, Karasu, and other is like that. Well, there's not really any way to account for the context in which those research are taking place. Like it, and there's not really way to have any clear cut. And furthermore, it just makes it so that it just like makes it that the question is like, should trans people be allowed to make choices? And why wouldn't the answer be yes, they should be allowed to make choices? Like, why shouldn't we? Like, what kind of research would make it so that the answer would be no, we shouldn't allow trans people to make choices, unless you have already this in mind, that there's a battleground to be like, there's the field of play is that like over trans people's autonomy. I have yet to be presented with a kind of research that would be useful the way it's been framed.
Entity trajectory, because we don't know. We don't know what does and doesn't affect gender identity and the outcome. We have
Everything.
no fucking clue.
No, we know what affects gender identity. We know it's like we can't know what in particular leads to what in particular, but we know that life experiences, that we know that being human affects your person, like your gender, your gender. And why should we like why should we operate on that level specifically for trans people? Yeah, it's just irrelevant. It's like, oh, you know, like, and it's like deeply offensive, to be honest, that like to say that to like try to analyze someone's being like that, like being scrutinized and like being like people making decisions for you just because of the questions you've answered.
Just like we don't know really what leads to like gendered behaviors. We know a certain amount of it starts out being like biological and bioevolutionary, but we don't know how much of it is.
That like you should ask feminists about that. You should ask feminists about that. That it's a more philosophical question than a like biological one. That's infuriating.
It's socialized, and how much like socialization might take over from biological evolutionary or evolutionary biology. Sorry. So but, like we have a lot of questions.
But yeah, why like there? I'm losing my words here. Yeah, well, like, oh, let's say that this biological change makes you trans. Why would you say that? Like, if the person in return says, no, that I'm not trans, like, that's it. That's the only thing, like, that defeats the whole your whole argument. That's like the way it's been framed is like that we like that you can guess someone's gender identity without them, or that you can assign someone's gender identity without them, but it's not something that you can diagnose. And like even the ways that they're saying about how we like how we would go about, like, that still requires output, like people to talk about it, like input from someone. That's like you're still even if you're operating in the nurture zone that you'd call, even if you think that you're operating in the nature zone, you're still operating in the nature because the nurture zone, because, well, that's all those conceptions are social in nature. All those scientific conceptions are still social in nature.
Questions about being trans generally anyway. And what she's proposed and what she's recommending is a massive research study that basically long-term follows all of the outcomes. So we basically brute force the data by numbers. There's no other way to do it with the trans community because it's not ethical to control for puberty. Yeah. So
what numbers? What are you talking about? Like that people make choices and that their choices are affected by the environment? And the like including the social environment. Okay. That we already knew that. And you want to know what factors? Well, that's still dependent on like the social environment and the person. Like that's you would only get like an average of some sort, which I don't think is like would satisfy you even then.
She's suggesting is basically like long-term studies of a variety of different kinds that follow every single possible variable, so that we know what happens.
Every single variant. Like you mean the multivariable analysis? Sure, but what would that say? That trans people should get autonomy? Like, what other results would you want? Like, would be useful?
Because again, the data currently is pretty scant, and I think that's been true. I think everybody admits that, at the very least, with regards to that. Because I think that what was kind of crazy is that I was watching a clip from LBC of Tom Swarbrick, somebody he's anti-trans, right? Let's put it that way, right? He's somebody who has an agenda that he wants to push. When he had his little LBC rant about the CAS review, he claimed that the review said that the NHS was quote-unquote experimenting on children. Obviously, I think that is ridiculous language.
Well,
and
yeah, it is. Well, like the fact is that being a child is experimentation. You experience things, you experiment with things, and well, like that's like that. Those kinds of like those experimentations are from themselves, sure. So like you could say that there's experimentation that with children. Like I don't think that's like, but the fact that it's mediated through a doctor, like that, like that's, I guess that's what people can only see. It's not that the child is experimenting with themselves. Like something that I think, well, like people don't accept it in terms of hormones and purity blockers. Sure. But they accept it in first type. Oh, they might not even accept it with gender, like, or like gendered clothes. They don't, because they are at the mercy of their parents' choice, their parents' wants, which I think it's extremely dangerous too. So like the idea of a child having autonomy about themselves is like very scary to people, because parents are supposed to be mediating everything, like the most inner experiences of their child, which is, I feel, is a bit crazy, but it's something that's accepted. Yeah.
Again, you've read the review. Is there anything in the review that would even lead to Tom to be able to say that in good faith as a journalist?
In good faith, probably not. But is there something that could lead to him logicking that out? Yes. Dr. Cass made it very clear that one of the things that was happening was the lack of consistent and understandable clinical rationale for prescriptions. What happened was there is a specific process that has to be followed when you're introducing a new medication into general prescription on the NHS, right? And what you do is you look at the initial study. In this case, it was the Dutch protocol. Then you implement it
The
here,
Dutch
and if you
protocol.
duplicate the findings,
Okay,
then
okay.
you
I'm going to check about the Dutch protocol. I've not rechecked it in a while. Well, or ever. Let's see. Wait. Can I switch? I'm going to switch the capture device. Well, the capture application. No, that's not the right one. Is it that one? Select window. Okay. Dutch protocol. The Dutch protocol consisting of a gonadotropin releasing to help pregnancy was implemented to treat adolescents with gender dysphoria. Okay, right away I can I don't like this perspective. But I think that's pretty clear from what I've said earlier. And study trends and trajectories in children and adolescents. Yeah, that's like, wait. Well, that's a study about the Dutch protocol. So that's it. That's the Dutch protocol. For Gemini transsexual. Origin and evidence. It's been a quarter century since Dutch clinicians proposed purity suppression as an intervention for juvenile transsexuals, which became the international standard for treating gender dysphoria. How would you treat gender dysphoria, whatever you think it means, by purity suppression? Like, how? Like, what's it? Because they are simply scared that the gender dysphoria is simply the scare at changing in itself. Like, I don't think anyone would like that. That would be applying to not to trans people, to transsexuals. That would be applying to most teens going through puberty, I think. If that's what we take gender dysphoria as meaning. Stripper scrutinize the history of this intervention and scrutinize the evidence adduced to support it. The intervention was justified by claims that it was reversible and it was a tool for diagnosis. Well, how reversible would it be? Like, the time you've lost from not going on purity is not going to, and like the changes that your like your other classmates are going through, like that's like you cannot turn back time. Your age goes on. Like, that's I think people make purity blockers more iodine than they actually are. Like, it's not something that you prescribe to like that you should prescribe to any one that like it's not something that should be prescribed without the consent of the patient, or like as a blanket thing. I think people should go through puberty of their through the purity of their choice. You shouldn't gatekeep it behind like purity blockers because you're scared of the choice they might take, even though you're not scared of a choice for people you'd call cis but who in fact don't want want a puberty that that their body is going through. Like that's one of my main issues. You're scared of the choices only if it's not the choice that's like that, not the choice that's that their body predestines them to. There come shortly after surgery. Wait, the main evidence for the wait. Okay, I skipped a bit. The intervention was justified by claims that it was reversible and that it was a tool for diagnosis, but these claims are increasingly implausible. The main evidence for the Dutch protocol came from a longitudinal study of 70 adolescents who had been subjected to puberty suppression, followed by cross-sex hormones and surgery. Like, I don't like. Fortunately, that's not something that you could do today, and like that's experimentation. That's like putting those people through like those permanent through something that's out of their control. The outcome shortly after surgery appeared positive, except for the one patient who died because of what? Like because of complications of surgery? Like have to know more. Wait, is there a study Dutch? Like, is there an additional study? Dutch study in the myth of. Oh, that's the evidence. Is it the transphobic? Yes, Society for Evidence-Based Gender Medicine. Is there a like? Can I find the original study references? Does anyone have any idea where I could find that? Because it seems to be referencing a study in the 70s. Wait, was it in the 70s? Oh, I should have checked. I should have clicked on the links. Maybe. What's that longitudinal study? I feel like I'm just stumbling upon. Yeah, I'm just. Is it Dutch protocol? No, that's. Is my chat frozen or there's no one chat? Maybe I could. No, it seems okay. Where can I find the original study? That shouldn't be too hard to find, given that it's referenced. Maybe that one. 2024. Can I find the original paper? This paper is talking about The main evidence for the Dutch protocol came from a longitudinal study of 70 adolescents who had been subjected to puberty suppression followed by cross-sex hormones. It says that except for one patient, maybe that's not really relevant. Oh, maybe that's... I should have scrolled. Wait. Gross color. Does it? Purity. Probably like an error of like the way. Yeah. I remember purity with Deborah. Look. Okay. Well, yeah. I think I'm getting lost. Oh, let's go back to the video. Okay.
You move on to another, a more open study, blah, 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 blah. That's not what happened. They didn't actually duplicate the findings. The findings they got from the study in question were actually very different than the original Dutch protocol. Like, the Dutch protocol found
because you couldn't do the Dutch
blockers.
protocol nowadays. We know better. We know better. Why would you control them? I feel those studies are just ways to justify control over trans people, not
had a positive,
like, oh, if we give just send for it's me.
psychological benefit, whereas the study we did following that didn't find the same thing. It found it was considerably more up in the air than that. However, the NHS instituted puberty blockers in commonality anyway, when they shouldn't. There were other steps they should have gone through first that they missed. That's where they're getting experimental, because kids fucked up.
We just haven't experimented on kids the right way.
Right, that makes more sense to me now. That's cleared some things up, because when I heard the language that he'd used, my assumption, because he didn't go into it himself, he just was being outraged about how we failed our children or whatever.
We did. We absolutely failed.
Well, I mean, yeah, I agree, but we failed them because we didn't have a proper system in place to be able to deal with what trans care should provide. Whereas I think Tom Swarbrick was trying to angle this as we failed them by treating children as if they can be trans at all. Right? Rather, because I think that when I listened to the kind of the polemic that he put out, the message that I took from it, whether or not he meant it or not, but it seemed clear to me. The position that he took, because he said, well, we're trying to tell children you can identify as whatever you want, blah, blah, standard perf shit. What I got from him was him saying that, well, there's no such thing as a trans child. If a child comes there with gender distress, the only approach there should be, how do we fix that so that they become cis? Which is, of course, conversion therapy. Rather than saying...
Yeah, which isn't what Dr. Cass says, and Dr. Cass herself says, you have to be really careful talking about therapy where these things are, because it's gotten to the point now where those who are hateful have appropriated the term exploratory therapy to reframe conversion therapy, right? But that's not what we're asking for. She did an interview with BMJ that was really good, where she goes into this and she's like, that they talk about therapy like the only form of therapy we might be recommending for trans kids or trans people is conversion, and that's not the fucking case. There's a difference between conversion therapy trying to change your gender identity and actual exploratory therapy that's like, okay, so you're feeling distress, you don't necessarily know if it's just about your body generally, like body dysmorphic disorder, or if it's like gender related or whatever. Let's explore your distress. how you're distressed, what its focus is on,
Wait,
what you're.
why wouldn't, like, if someone's feeling distressed, like, the like, yeah, there's something like, sure, but it's being presented as a gate.
Your brain says to you, like, let's explore that and try get to the root of it, not, and like try teach you how to manage and handle it, not, you shouldn't be trans. Because as someone who is transitioning, like, I know it takes a lot of fucking work. And it is really hard to do, like having to get used to like being social in a different way, having to like grapple with your own dysphoria as you're in different stages of transition, and then how that morphs and changes over time as well. Like, absolutely, she should be fucking encouraging these things. It's what we should all be as trans people, be encouraging for our community, because she's right. We deserve a better standard of care than we were getting. And the people who are arguing against it and who are like, oh, well, we need to email our MSPs and what have you to get them to like say no to the cast review. I want to bang their fucking heads together. I really do.
Okay,
because it's like, dude, have you even read the fucking thing? Because it doesn't say what you think it says. Anything she could have said in that review at all, no matter how honest it was, could have been weaponized against us. She could have included.
I don't think that's true. Or like, maybe coming from Cass. Probably, like, given that I'm pretty sure she's been, like, she's primed people to think that way. But, like, things like the German review, I don't think could be seen in that way. Like, maybe I'm saying too much, huh? It's because, well, it's being presented as like the thing to end, like the way to control trans people, and instead of like the question, do trans people deserve to be free to do things? Answer, I think we should control that. That's the cast answer. And well, no wonder that people like say, oh, well, I just think we should control them in that other way. Like that it just gives rise to people going and like saying, yeah, there's an issue with me giving people the choice.
Every iota of data about trans people that has ever existed, no matter the quality of that study, and people still would have weaponized it against us, because bad actors will be bad actors regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what's frustrating about it, is I feel that, especially since that somehow, I don't know whether this is true or not, but it seems to me from the way it had been reported that a press release had been put out that gender critical people had somehow managed to get hold of, claiming that it was somehow this grand vindication of their position, which, given what you've enlightened us to in this conversation so far,
maybe that
doesn't seem to be
reason.
the case at all.
Maybe
it's really not. What it is 400, almost 400 pages of very, very dense medical literature. That's very, very difficult for people who aren't used to medical literature to understand. The only reason I'm capable of wrapping my head around it is because I am disabled and trans. I had to learn to advocate for myself and for my ex-partner, because my ex-partner is also physically disabled and autistic and struggled to do it for himself. And for my kids, because my daughter is autistic and can't advocate for herself. And my son, because he had to have an emergency surgery at a week old and could not advocate for himself. I had to be entrenched in medical literature. So I got used to reading it and understanding it. Most people don't. And it infuriates me when they read it and take a very unnuanced and layman understanding from it in a way that it's no, that's not. not what any of that says. And if you don't know the background of like the NHS, the way the NHS functions, why these reviews happen, how they're structured, etc., how they're like implemented, etc. If you don't know all of that, you don't know NICE guidelines, you don't know how NICE works. If you're someone
think
like
she
Aaron
likes
Reed in the
it.
US, you're
Yeah.
not gonna have
He likes
fucking clue what's
perspective.
going on or why. You need to have context for this shit, otherwise you're not going to understand it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think another thing that I want clarification on, just before kind of get into a more kind of broader discussion, really, is that one other thing that was a kind of a screenshot from the report that went viral that I saw was one bit where I don't know whether it was something that Hilary Cass had written or she'd copied from somewhere else, or it was just like a table in the actual review itself, but it was a bullet point saying that there'd been reports of people who were becoming more likely to become trans because they knew other people that were trans, like this kind of social contagion stuff. My assumption then, given what we've just discussed, is that this was just a footnote or a side point about what had been talked about in the discourse, rather than a scientific point about the idea that there potentially is a case of social contagion going on here. Was that something put forward by Hilary Cass, or is that just a side note?
It's a bit of both. In that, as you know, I was mentioning, we don't know what does and doesn't affect gender identity. We don't know what does and doesn't like. It seems like we all get a similar kind of socialization, but some of us just internalize it differently and end up trans. It's effectively that she's talking about, but on a social media level.
Maybe the answer is that, my friend, I know that person. I sympathize with that person. And like they say, oh, this thing is possible. Oh, you can be that. You can do those choices, and you're not forced to do there. That means that I could do those choices. I could have that choices, and like maybe that's what's affecting that thing. It's not like they're not making them trans. They just make them realize that they have the choice in the matter.
Fucking not. Like we don't have any idea if this kid would still have ended up trans if they hadn't found X influencer. We don't fucking know. We don't. Like, she mentions it as a thing that's been discussed.
Why
and as a
should that
possibility,
matter?
but
Why should that
she
matter?
never stopped saying we don't know.
Okay, that's fair
If
enough.
someone
That's
introduces
kind of the
me
whole
to
point. The whole point
like
is like
cars,
we need to watch
and now I like
monitor as
cars.
much as we can, because there's too much we don't
Does
know.
that
We can't definitely debunk the social contagion theory. Therefore, we need to know more.
Does that mean that
Is the
the
argument.
person's
That makes a lot
social
of sense to me,
contagion
but
leads
that's
into liking
given again,
cars?
my assumptions that I mentioned before,
maybe,
that seems
but why
to be my
should that
assumptions
matter?
were kind of broadly correct about
Sorry.
what that was doing in the Cass review, because I saw a lot of gender critical types say, oh look, she doesn't discount all of our little conspiracy theories we've got going on about trans YouTube influences poisoning the minds of our children, so that means we must be correct because it's been pointed out as maybe a thing that somebody talked about one time, rather
What she
than
says is
like,
there's no data.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Specifically,
There's
what
no
she says is
data
there's
on
no
whether
data.
people do
And
things.
like that's the thing. She has to bring up all of this shit. She has to, because it's part of the wider conversation,
because
right?
they know that it's
So
possible.
she has to bring up all of these horrible things that are really difficult for us to talk about and don't have definite data to debunk them. So seeing people be like, oh yeah, she mentioned this, therefore she's taking it seriously. Not necessarily. What she's doing is being a doctor, and she's looking at it from an evidentiary perspective.
No, she's
And
not
she's
being a
going, right,
doctor.
this is all the shit that's being spoken about. It's what we do and don't have data.
She's making claims that are outside of her capacity. She's going outside, like she's making like philosophical points. That's not what a doctor should do. Like, yeah, like some people, they feel that's perfectly accurate, Karasu. Like, some people like wouldn't even know that what they could be describing themselves as trans until they are told what it was to be trans. And like, Just like we didn't know what. Yeah, they're like, because, well, they're still operating like the realm of like being trans is an illness. That's why he's so uncomfortable with like like not being able to say that, to debunk that point. Because that's yeah, just talk to those people. Like we're yeah, like, yeah, I think you're making a good point upon that. Like, it's talk to those people, ask them that you think are victims of like contagion. Talk to them, say, hey, what happened? But like, no, we have to treat them like an illness. We can't trust what they're saying because they would like they would be hostile, and maybe that's a good reason for them to not talk. Maybe you should think about that. Like, if you're going to say to like be using their talk to like deny them, to argue for denying them freedom, maybe you should think about that. Yeah, it's social contagion. Is liking cause a social contagion? Well, no, because it's not an illness.
Like, she goes through everything from how GIDS was formed to how it was run to data they have from like a certain section of like discharge patients from like 2018 to 2022. They had like 3,000, and even in that, though, I'll get on to why this is not great anyway, evidence-wise in a minute. Even in that, she only found 0.5% of people were detransitioners. But because the adult services wouldn't share data with the review, despite specifically being instructed to by the NHS and the government both, we don't know if that continues longitude, which is part of the reason a review is now being requested into adult care, because adult services refused to share data that they were supposed to have shared. Adult services fucked trans people. They fucked trans people over in that decision, where they were like, we're not sharing data. And I get they probably weren't sharing it because they've had a lot of scandals around data leakages and what have you. But it is very different sharing it around when it's a medically necessitated, like medical board requested thing for the sake of like long-term care. It's frustrating because if we'd had the longitudinal evidence, we could have waved it in their face and gone, look, see, but we don't. And that's something that like Dr. Katz really emphasizes, that without longitudinal data,
like,
we can't.
We need a study to prove that
we need that trans people absolutely
to prove that we need like we want that we need to be able to choose for ourselves. Like, it seems that seems pointless.
Exist and absolutely need care, and that it's such a complex issue. Like, everything she says is through a lens of, I want to be able to prove all of this stuff, I believe all of this stuff, but we just don't have the data.
That's fair. So is that then probably why there's probably a reasonable contention that people have as to why so much of the data that we do have about how people detransition or the efficacy of transitioning being left out of the review is a little bit frustrating. Because,
well, like,
if we,
what are we talking about by transitioning? Like, do we talk about choosing how to call yourself, choosing your pronouns? Those are choices that, like, why would you need to prove their efficacy? Choosing to get purity blockers, getting hormones, why would you need to prove their efficacy? Like, efficacy in what sense? Does it make people happier? Well, we shouldn't like say, like, we don't put other people's freedom on hold because they could be doing something that they might come to regret, or they might make them less happy. We don't do that with like people that we hold to be of the cis heteronormative framework of, like, the people who are in the group. Like, you're just saying that they are right in limiting freedoms.
We could include all of these non-double-blinded studies, because I know that some of them are included in the discussion in the review, but not in the conclusion, from what I've seen, because of the different kind of standards that were applied as to what would calculate to be good, like, or moderate in terms of their efficacy as a study, because that would have been given us more information to be able to make more firmer conclusions.
So yeah, like, I open this with, I have criticisms, and this is most of where my criticisms lie. So what happened was they appeared to look at puberty blockers separately from everything else. First, they looked at puberty blockers through a lens of them being on-label prescriptions for gender dysphoria, like they're a gender dysphoria treatment, which isn't the case, right? Because the cohort changed. This is where it gets really complicated. Because of how cultural attitudes towards trans people changed so quickly over such a short space of time, the patient cohort went from mostly assigned male at birth, definitely binary trans women, to mostly assigned female at birth, somewhere on a spectrum of trans, as opposed to, like, falling specifically in a box neatly. It went from something that was very, very neat to something that was very, very messy. The question she had to answer was, why has the cohort changed? Which is where the potential social contagion came up, because it's something that has been in the discourse, and there has been academic papers written about. Because
feminine gender identity has been historically extremely repressive. Historically feminine, and even today, being a woman takes on all those kinds of expectations of you, and that doesn't mean that one wants to be a man. Just means that they don't want to be seen as having those expectations thrust up onto them. And because even if we extend and shape feminine gender identity, there's saying, yeah, I'm non-binary, don't have those expectations of me, please. That's a better way to get that thing across before, instead of I'm a woman, but those things that you've heard about what women should be, they don't matter, and you shouldn't expect me to be a woman. Maybe that's the reason. And at this point, that makes me think, why should I even I think personally, personally, I could go into like thoughts about why I think why I call myself a woman. Like, I don't think that's really matters here. That, like, yeah, it's none of your business. And like, there's different expectations of trans women than cis women still, and that, like, that gives me more freedom still.
Like,
No,
some of the
indeed
stuff
not.
she left out, some of the stuff she left out included those. Like, bear that in mind. She had a very high standard of quality for evidence for a reason. And I think it was in part so that she could leave those studies out.
Yeah, because we've all
Otherwise-
read that we've all read the Lippmann paper. We all know how Wakefieldy it is. Making sure
Yes.
that we have a threshold high enough to instantly discard those things is worth our
Yes.
while as much as it is broadly.
Yes, precisely. The problem is there are papers on both sides because you can't double blind for people. There
Yeah.
are papers on both sides
Both
that
sides of
aren't
what?
structurally great, that aren't longitudinal enough, that don't have a particularly good sample size. It was reasonable shit like that she controlled.
Yeah, because I remember saying that there's like the high quality study or
Mhm.
the high tolerance. I remember somebody breaking this down on Twitter. The high tolerance one, high quality ones, the high quality data or high likelihood ones. That was whereas a couple was, and there was a big kind of chunk of moderate quality or like moderate like chance of being correct studies. Those are the ones that were included in the review but not included in the conclusion because they weren't high enough evidence. And then there was a bottom tier of the low quality ones that were all discarded. And that one I'm assuming would have included stuff like the Lippmann paper for what it's worth.
So yeah, what happened was basically she separated puberty blockers from everything else, from all the social shit.
Yeah,
And she
like,
looked at puberty blockers.
it's
like,
exactly like the the autism saying that. I'm very sure that people said that autism, like all those new mental illnesses, they are social contagions. Like, people said that. And like, they just don't know anything. They aren't thinking about the fact that how those things work in the world, in communities, in society.
That's one whole thing, and the way they were done, and blah blah blah. And then she looked at the social shit, and in between those two alone, the standards of studies she included were different because they have to be, right? If you're looking at medication and drugs and hormones and chemistry, you have to have a very, very, very high bar of evidence because of the potentiality of.
But we're not talking about whether those medications have any effect or like whether they have this effect. We're talking about, do they give control over people, and do they give people control? And that's pretty much manifest. How much is it? Oh, it's almost over.
Something happening that's a problem, especially with the more severe side effects of puberty blockers. Because one of the things she found was that there were like patients who were being kept on puberty blockers for like a decade. The maximum amount of time they're supposed to be prescribed for is like 2 years.
Yeah, it's
They were
basically
being
supposed to be
kept on
there for
them.
like 13 to 15 as far as I'm aware. Just the age where puberty would really start having an effect to give you that gap that you need to be more firm in your identity, to know what you want to do, to make this to transition or not. And then if you do want to transition, you're only a short time away from being 16 and being able to take cross-sex hormones anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to be for a very short period of time,
But, like-
at Tanner stage 2 or 3.
But like, why? Oh. Yeah, but like, why put people on purity blockers in the first place? Why? Still, I like what he just said, that like there's this protocol. Why don't we leave that in? Why do we fear those people having agency so much?
Of puberty to allow for
Right.
the penile growth to enable a vaginoplasty if that's something that's required later.
Yeah.
Because if you do it too early, it can lead to complications with bottom surgery.
Okay, sure,
it
but
can-
why not talk about? Well, like first off, yeah, that's the case with if you use puberty blockers for too long. But why not talk to that about with the child? Or why not do that in concert with the child? Talk about the consequences. That's what the doctor should be doing. They make sure the child is aware of like the consequences and like prescribe them like when the child asks it. That's what a doctor should be doing, not like, oh, we're gonna impose you this protocol, you're gonna want those things, and or if you don't want them, too bad, you can't access hormones. If that's like that doesn't make sense.
Indeed, yeah.
As such, it is a big problem when AFAB people are being put on puberty blockers that they might not need because we don't know if it does have an effect on the medicalisation of the pathway or not. Long term, we don't have that data. There is
Wait, what does that? The medicalization? You mean like if they're growing up to be trans? Is that what you're saying?
a medicalisation of the pathway or not. Long term, we don't have that data. Don't know on puberty to allow for the penile growth to enable a vaginoplasty if that's something that's required later.
Yeah.
Because if you do it too early, it can lead to complications with bottom surgery.
Yeah, that should be talked with the person.
It can indeed, yeah.
As such, it is a big problem when AFAB people are being put on puberty blockers that they might not need.
Might not need, but in what way? Like, you're saying that they aren't requesting it? Yeah, that's my whole issue. Are you saying that they like, because, but that would be clashing with your entire point of like it being like mediated, those ones being mediated through the doctor.
Because we don't know if it does have an effect on the medicalisation of the pathway or not.
We don't know. You mean like having grown breasts and then having to go to get top surgery, or like complications for phalloplasty? Like, sure, like, but that's something that should be talked with the patient, as always. It should be upon the patient's request.
Long term, we don't have that data. There is a possibility that if they're being kept on them for like a decade while they like make up their mind, it is a possibility that A, it's making up their mind for them, and B,
it's making up their mind for them. Why? Why would you assert such a direct connection between, like, you said earlier that you said earlier that those we don't know, but then you're saying that we should act upon the things that we don't know?
that it is causing very severe bone density issues. Osteoporosis is no fucking joke.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's another reason why we should give people the option to go on to go on HRT.
the idea that someone would be kept on them for 10 years is absolutely ridiculous. Like, there's no reason for that. And that's the problem that you have with, like, an off-label prescription, is that there's no specific guidelines that you can be tied to based upon what it would have been originally on label for. Because, again, it's for precocious puberty, like, but I guess that...
Well, no, that's not the issue, though. It would still be an issue with doing that for precocious purity. Is that we force, like, I'm not sure that many people would want to be on purity blockers for that long. Like, yeah, it has effects on, like, bones, yeah, but also it also prevents you from having a puberty in itself. Like, yeah, it's good for preventing the wrong purity, the purity that one doesn't want, but it's not putting someone purity. Like, we seem to be going at it backwards. We seem to be asserting that, like, we seem to be saying, yeah, those
some people with precocious puberty might have needed to be on that for a long time, but that's not the same usage of the pharmaceutical than it would be if you're transgender. And people are making that's the issues they have. Just there's no oversight of this. It all seems like it's a bit internally a bit Wild West.
Yes, it's exactly that. You're correct.
Well, the issue is that people think that purity, like, the doctors feel entitled, like, empowered to deny people to have that choice, to make that choice, to have the purity they want, and that's the bad thing. I don't think it's the purity blockers are just a symptom of the real problem, which is we're putting too much of this in the hands of the doctor, and now we're gonna put it in the hands of the institution, which to me seems to be like a very dangerous thing, especially because those institutions have proven hostile to, like, because now you're saying that you're making the treatment equal, and if it's a bad treatment, if it's something, it will just make things worse for most trans people in the UK.
Entirely correct. It's why these recommendations were necessary. It's why I am as angry as I am at the more woke side of the left at the moment, because they're all screeching and hollering about how the cast review is the worst possible thing that could have happened to trans people. Is it fucked? Based on the evidentiary standards she had to have because of the topic and the political climate and the amount of bunk studies there are,
but why frame everything through those?
Anyway,
like,
it could have been so much fucking worse.
Why frame our freedom through studies? Why should we decide whether we deserve freedom from the result of the studies? It's making me angry. Well, I'm not really angry. I'm annoyed.
Have been so much worse. If she'd actually had hateful intent, we'd have been able to tell.
And the fact that we now have her clarifications in the interview that she gave afterwards. First of all, it's good, because now that we can have this information, whenever GCs come up and say, oh, well, you've got the cast review now, we know trans people aren't real, and we go, look, these are all the recommendations that she clarified when speaking to this LGBT plus charity, right?
Oh, yeah. Now you have, like, oh, this review says, no, you're just doing it wrong, you're just medicalizing, you're just saying that we have a mental illness, but you're doing it wrong. I agree that we have a mental illness. I think we should be treated like we have no agency. It's just I'm asking that the way you're going at removing our agency is wrong. Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly the thing I want. I want people to think.
We know that she supports our right to transition. We know that she supports there being NHS provision for it. We know that she supports broad adult care. We know that all of these things are things that she hasn't said that she doesn't support. And that is a
but
win
she's
for us, not a
supporting the
win for
thing that's
you.
keeping
And you
us
can't just kind of pick and
at their
choose bits and
mercy.
pieces out of the report that suit your narrative, regardless of what side you're on, when asked in concrete terms, yes or no, do you support these things or not? She's come down on our side on most things and had a healthy dose of skepticism about the efficacy of puberty blockers as a pharmaceutical, not necessarily as something that you can
is the
use.
German review out? I've seen articles talking about whether it should be out. Because that would be interesting to review. That would be refreshing, maybe. Check it. German review trans. And you could send me a link through Discord if you find. I know that you've listed an article that talks about it.
Because it might help trans people, because we know that there are at least some cases of it helping trans people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that you can prescribe as a pharmaceutical, because the side effects might be worse than any gains that you might get for it being positive for your transition. And that's what the review is there for.
But
who's
determining that? Who's determining that? Like, it's like, are we saying that like that should be on the patient to be saying what works best for them? Like, that's still not that. Like, you're putting another authority to make choices in people's stead, and like, sure, people make uninformed choices all the time, and choices that make them life worse, but that doesn't mean we should be making we should be denying people
the
the
cast
ability
reviews happened,
choice.
so trans people have lost or whatever. Like, I hate saying win or lose for something so important, but you know what I mean. You know what GCs are like. They treat it like it's a fucking game. They treat it like that it's a war that they want to win, rather than a society that they want to make better. So I hate using their verbiage on this one, but whenever they try...
Well, the war is about society. It's about the control over society. Well, like, that's still a political fight, and we have to make it so that society respects us as human beings and not as medical cases, like what Cass is arguing. That like, yeah, as long as we can't... oh, they talked with Oven Jones. Did I read... I could check that out afterwards. Can send me a link. Is there a video, or is it simply a transcript? Yeah.
Angle at the cast review as a vindication of their position. We have a clear amount of evidence from what she said in this interview to be able to tell them that that's wrong.
Wait.
you wanted to talk about the catastrophe.
I do. I've only
Wait. Did we reach the end? Oh. So yeah, it took 2 hours to review that video.
pharmaceutical because the side effects might be worse than any.
Yeah, that was the end. Alright, well, I might review the article on stream later, but I feel I shouldn't push myself too much. Been nice talking and chatting with y'all. I think we're gonna call it for today, at least. I wish you a good day, and I love you all. See ya.